I would like to call this board meeting April the 11th, 2024 for the Public Schools, Robeson County Board of Education to order. At this time, we would like to have a moment of silence. I would like to remember Mr. Noah Woods, who served as teacher, principal, county commissioner of Robeson County, and also the student at St. Paul's Elementary that passed, and the student at Lumberton High School. If you would just take a minute, please. Thank you. At this time, we have the Pledge of Allegiance, St. Paul's High School, JROTC. If you would, please stand.
Mark time, mark. Go dog, go. Left face. I am Cadet Angie Morales from St. Paul's High School. If you could please recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right face. Vote. Forward, march.
I would like to thank St. Paul's High School, JROTC, for coming tonight for the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, I need a motion to adopt the agenda. We need to move this thing. Okay. All right. All in favor, say.
That was a motion by Mr. Gentry, second by Mr. Leach.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, we have Ms. Monroe, I believe, virtual.
Okay.
So did we get her vote?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so it's unanimous.
Approval of minutes, open session. I've got a motion by Mr. John Simmons to approve open session minutes. A second by Ms. Melissa Ocean. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Information items.
Mr. Chairman and board members, I'm honored tonight, and I'm going to ask Ms. Jennifer Freeman and her team that she can introduce to come forward. If you remember last year, our Migrant Ed program was recognized as the most improved program in the state. Where something happened this week that's never happened before, we're recognized this week now as the highest performing program in the state. That has never happened. And that a school district that was recognized for most improved to continue that work and be recognized as the highest performer. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Jennifer, share the good news, share everything about it. And we so appreciate your leadership and the work. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Lawson, Superintendent Dr. Williamson, board members and guests. I am very pleased and honored this evening to stand before you for the second year to receive Migrant Education Award. When I arrived here in 2018, that was a concerning area for us, was migrant education. The students are available, they're out there, but there requires a lot of perseverance and dedication to find those students. Those students have multiple layers of needs, as many of our students have. This year, I was very excited to realize that our goal last year was to just simply improve and move forward, to be known as continuously improving. Never did I imagine that this year that we would actually receive the second award, that we are the most outstanding migrant education program in North Carolina. So I often work very, very hard not to share tears and show tears, but I could not help but to share and show tears on Tuesday when we were in Cary, because this is an honor that I could not do without those individuals that are standing beside me. I learned a long time ago, you can be a good leader, but you become great with good people beside you and great people beside you. So as I endeavored to recruit, we went through a long period of time where you're looking at the migrant education recruiter, which was me. Didn't do too well at that. Not too good at going out into chicken farms and blueberry fields and hunting people down, but nevertheless, I did do that part, and I learned very quickly I needed somebody to help me. So I was gifted with a very great recruiter, and I'm going to let each one of my team members at this time share their name and their role. I know you're holding the banner, so just Scott, I'll help hold that banner as you move over. Maria, if you will come first and introduce yourself, share your role if you would, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Maria Hilario, and I am the migrant recruiter for the public schools of Robeson County. As Ms. Freeman has stated, when I came into the role as the migrant recruiter, we had a very small population of migrant children that were not, since then, we have increased the number by 51%. In the year and a half that I have been in this role. With that being said, we do strive to provide the basic needs of our migratory students by providing if anything that they need, whether that is material support or academic support. We do have tutors in place that do provide those services, and I just want to thank the leadership here at the district level, Dr. Williamson, Ms. Freeman, Mr. Phillip, for allowing us to carry on this work. Thank you.
Join me in.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sandra Lopez Greenfield, and I'm currently assisting Ms. Maria Hilario as the migrant CEO reviewer for the district. But I also have you also play a second role as the multilingual learner program lead teacher. I'm very honored to have received this along with Ms. Freeman, Dr. Williamson, and our team. We are a great team. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Glennis Vasquez, and I serve as the Migrant Education and Multilingual Learner Program Assistant, and I am grateful to be a part of this team.
So I'd like to share just one clip of what was shared when we were there. It's very important. Alex Charles presented the presentation to us, but I would like to read a couple of comments from him. He said, this award was given to the school district for its excellence in the migrant education program, setting it apart as the best migrant education program in the state. Final words from him. It is very important to highlight the Migrant Education District, that it is the first in North Carolina to receive back-to-back awards. And again, I can't say how pleased and honored I am, because for a very long time, that was a goal of mine, to find recruiters, to find individuals that could help us with finding our migratory students throughout the district. So again, if you would join with me, because I didn't do this, they did. If you will join with me in a round of applause for my staff. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman. Next is tribal data presentation, Ms. Jennifer Freeman and Dr. Wendy Dorsey Carr.
Mr. Chair and board members, before they present, they have a meeting tonight with the tribal council, and so they're going to need to leave. With that, I'm requesting that we move our 24-25 Title VI grant information by Dr. Locklear, that we move that up so she can present that and then attend that meeting, please. And we will need to take action on the grant presentation.
Good evening again. Tonight, we will actually have our tribal meeting. It is not the tribal consultation. It is actually the tribal meeting where we will meet with the Lumbee tribe in Pembroke, North Carolina, immediately following this meeting. And what we provided for you today, I think you have it at your seat tonight. You have the PowerPoint presentation that we will be providing from the district, from the federal program perspective. Each year annually, we have to provide a federal program perspective. We have to work in consultation with the tribe as well. And what I would like to bring your attention to is several of the slides that we will be sharing tonight. If you'll look with me, I believe you see the slide on the screen as well as it's in your PowerPoint. I believe it's page 9. If you will look within your slide, page 9. With federal programs, it is a requirement that each year and consecutively that we look at the district data along the way. It's very important that we look at how each subgroup is performing. So tonight we'll share subgroup information about the American Indian. And if you'll notice, we look for trend data. We always look for trend data in the public schools of Robeson County, and specifically with federal programs. So if you'll go along with me, we're going to look for trend data from 21, 22, and year 3, 2023. So if you'll look at how all students are performing in grades 3 through 8, you'll notice that in 2021, we had 20.9% of our students performing. 2022, we had 30.7% of our students performing within the combined areas of subjects in grades 3 through 8. So Wendy, if I'm correct, we're looking at primarily English, and for the first bullet, we're looking at primarily the reading, if I'm correct, or all subgroups. All subgroups. So if I'm correct, we're looking at all subjects combined for the first one. And if you'll notice with me, in 2023, we're looking at all students at 34.90%. Let's look carefully at how our American Indians are performing. In 2021, 20.9%, 2022, 31.5%, and 2023, 36.50%. I'm just going to take a moment for us to pause. What have you noticed with that trend?
We're going north.
Going up.
We're making the trend upward. That is what we want to see anytime that we look at the data, is we want to see movement moving toward the north, as Dr. Williamson has said. If you'll look at students in science in grades 3 through 8, the subgroup for 2021, 35.1, 2022, 50.5, 2023, 51.8. Notice again the trend that you're seeing. In 2021, 31.1%, 2022, 54.3, and 2023, 57.2. Again, what are you noticing about the data? We're seeing increases, so that leads us to think and to know that we are gathering evidence along the way that indicates that we are putting right strategies in place to move this district forward. So then if you will look at students in reading grades 3 through 8, I'm going to let you take a gander for that for just a moment. Look at those numbers. What pattern are you noticing for students in reading in grades 3 through 8? The increase. And finally, students in math in grades 3 through 8, what have you noticed as well?
Increase.
You're seeing double digits and more. So you're seeing what we strive to see in each and every year in federal dollars, also at the district level. We're striving toward continuous improvement. Wendy, I'll ask that if you will share the second slide, looking at the data for high school EOC.
So if you take a look at the high school for the EOC combined, what you'll notice is similar trends to what we saw in K-8. So you'll see in all, in 2021, we started at 22.7, and by 2023, we were up to 39.3. With American Indian, we started at 23.2, and we're up to 40.4. So then if we look at biology, you'll see the same trend. We start off with all at 24.6, and now we are at 49.5. American Indian, we start out at 26.4, and we've moved up to 48.3. So if you look at Math 1, we see similar trends. You see that we start with all at 14, 22.7, and now 29.1. And then American Indian, 12.7, 20.5, and then 27.7. With students in Math 3, we started at 16.3, went to 31.8, and now we're at 42.5. American Indian, we started at 16, 38.1, and now we're at 48. And then for English 2, we see that we started with all at 35.3, went to 37.5, and are now at 38.6. And then we see American Indian, 36.8 to 38.2 to 39.6. So you can see with all of these, the same trend that we see in K-8 is also happening at the high school.
So Dr. Carr and I will team tag the cohort graduation rate for the American Indian. And also tonight, I've asked for Ms. Jadelle Hawks to join us this evening, and she will share some information with you as well. What I would like for you to see when standing up here, I told Wendy earlier, at my age, I have to be very mindful not to squint. So if you see me squinting, just know that I'm squinting to make sure that I'm giving y'all the correct information as well. So what I would like for you to notice in the year-over-year cohort graduation rate is I want you to observe two colors. Those two colors at the end of each graph. If you'll look, we're going to be looking at the gray graph area and the yellow area. In elementary education, we call that canary yellow. So I just want to throw that out there, but it is actually known as the yellow. So the first two graphs that you see, we're talking about the state performance, the state overall. And what you will notice for the 4-year trend for the state graduation rate was 86. If you'll notice, if you look at the state graduation rate on the next graph over in the gray area, you'll see the 4-year graduation rate for American Indian at 80.3. Then as we move along, you will notice we put a graph in there for you for PSRC for all. And in the gray area, you'll notice that our 4-year trend for our students with the cohort graduation is 79.2. And finally, PSRC American Indian, the 4-year graduation rate is 78.
So now if we look at the 5-year graduation rate, which is the last column, the yellow column in each one, what you'll see for last year, the state was at 87.7 for all. For American Indian, they were at 86.1. And then if we look at PSRC, our 5-year graduation for all was 85.3, and for American Indian was 86.5.
So as we've been looking over the cohort graduation rate, you'll probably see the trend that we saw is we saw a decrease with the American Indian cohort graduation rate. And so noticing that trend decreasing, the district has come together to actually study and talk about concerns and issues and how we're going to move forward with this current data that we receive. So I've asked Jadelle to actually address that this evening. So Jadelle, if you will come forward at this time.
Good afternoon, Chairman Lawson, board members, Dr. Williamson. What we have done and put in place is we have made sure that when we do walkthroughs with our counselors and our social workers, that they're communicating and collaborating to go out into the communities and find where these students are. After COVID, a lot of our students have become very transient and they're moving a lot within our county, and it's tracking where they're going, finding out how we can find the gaps in services that they need so they can get into school, and then also making sure that we're obtaining the correct data and information of where they're going. A lot of them are at home schools, they're online, or they're going outside of our county to get educational services. And a lot of them are also working and doing employment. So we're trying to meet those needs of those students, capture that verification information on that cohort graduation rate, and make sure that we're monitoring them more closely.
One final comment that we would like to share with you for federal programs, we are always in the spring, we begin our planning process. So we're in the phase of planning. And so board members, on your slides, you'll notice at the very end of your slide presentation, you'll notice that there will be next steps. Those are planning phase meetings that we'll be having. And part of that work for federal programs is also the tribal consultation. But if you'll notice, federal programs requires us to work with all parents. So you'll see and notice different events and activities that we're going to be involving all parents and all stakeholders in our district. The one I would like for you to note specifically is May 6th. On May 6th, we will actually be hosting our tribal consultation for the public schools of Robeson County to meet with our Native American tribes that are located within our region. And that will be in this boardroom, if I'm correct. And currently we're looking at the time frame 4:30 to 6:30. And during that time, we will present more data, and we will also have the opportunity for them to look at concerns, issues, and we'll gather questions and feedback from them as well. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, please. Ms. Freeman, will you talk about the definition of tribal consultation that meets the requirement on a public school system?
For tribal consultation, what is required is each year annually, we are to hold an annual planning meeting. And when we hold that annual planning meeting, we are to share all the federal dollars that we receive. So in this district, we receive, that I provide oversight for, is Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, and we also have Title VI that I provide oversight. And because we receive $40,000 plus in dollars for Title VI, we are required to present all of our titles. When we do that, those planning consultation sessions are only required to be held one time. However, we have decided back in 2019, when I was working with the tribal chairman at that time, Mr. Harvey Godwin, I recognized at that time we needed to have more than one culminating event. It's not an event. Working with our students is not an event. It's a process. It's a system. So with that being said, we added tribal consultation members to our district improvement team. They still continue to this day. I think those numbers have switched some, and the number of folks have switched. However, we are required to do that, and we do that each year annually. And as I said, we've actually combined the district improvement meetings. With that consultation, we are required, again, to listen to their concerns, show the feedback, show the data, listen to their concerns, listen to their issues, and to receive information from them. However, I would like to share with you, because I am quoting direct guidance from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, the district works in collaboration. When we receive the feedback and we receive those recommendations, we still, as a district, come back together, look at those recommendations, look at the feedback, and still we come back together to do what's collectively best for all students.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Emmanuel?
Statement, couple questions. I think Jadelle addressed what I was going to say. She mentioned the effect that COVID had on the dropout. I think in her presentation, in your presentation, you and Dr. Carr, you may want to mention maybe the possibility of COVID may have deterred for you having even a greater gain on all ethnicities, by, I don't know what percent COVID you could say, maybe 5% or something, but in your presentation, I didn't hear it mentioned that the effect that COVID may have had on the increase in scores.
Yes.
So that would be a good point, I think. And another thing, and then I'll be finished. If I were in the audience listening to this, I would be very impressed, but I would probably say, what 3 key things did you do to up those test scores? And what are some new initiatives maybe you're going to do? So maybe that would be a part you want to throw in there, just some bullets that I think would give a lot of credence to those scores. Just numbers are great, but what did you do that was earth shaking that made this increase happen?
Dr. Emanuel, I think those are excellent points, and thank you for those points. Tonight, we did not actually provide the entire presentation to you. We only gave you a snippet sample of the
Okay.
data. With that being said, all federal dollars, federal programs, we're driven by needs assessment. So that conversation tonight will start off with needs assessment.
Okay.
And then once we go into the needs assessment, what we will do is show what those needs were. And then what did we do as a result of seeing those needs? And part of that work tonight will share what we did actually implementing a core, because at the district level, we did not have a core for years. When I was working previously with my other role, that was one of the things that we did notice about the public schools of Robeson County, because that way when one student leaves student A, goes to Pembroke Elementary, and I'll use you ladies since you're sitting in here, I happen to have my granddaughter at that site as well, and that student goes over, that's the same elementary, to Deep Branch Elementary, you want an equal playing field. You want a level playing field. And so part of that work has been, we believe, to be the core that we will attribute that to, along with other pieces that we put in place, providing the comprehensive support we have to those schools that are designated as CSI and TSI. But in that report, in our presentation tonight, we will allude to that. We will also allude to the COVID. One of the things we always want to do is we want to give COVID credit, but we don't want COVID to be the ladder that we lean on, saying this is why we are where we are.
But I'm sorry, I didn't want to demean what you were doing. I just thought you were going to go tonight and present the numbers. Thank you, though.
You're quite welcome. Thank you for asking that, because I think that is a great point. But in this presentation, it's very extensive. Again, it's not the tribal consultation. It is a tribal meeting. We have actually around 47 slides that we will present with them this evening that will cover many items that you have just mentioned. So thank you, Dr. Emanuel, for those words of wisdom. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, next will be 2024, 2025 Title VI grants. Yes. Dr. Connie Locklear.
Good evening, Chairman Lawson, board members, and Superintendent Williamson. I'm here a little early this time. Our grant opened on April the 1st, and it closes on May the 10th. So in order for us to submit this grant, we needed your approval. You have received the slide show earlier, and so I won't go through all of this, but basically this is a grant. A Title VI grant is a supplemental grant. Our funds were decreased this year from 2.4 to 2.3. We still have our consortium agreements with Pembroke, CIS Academy, and Southeastern. Old Mainstream elected this year to apply for the grant independently. This is basically from the Office of Indian Education, and it's the guidelines based on our Parent Advisory Committee. And then these are some of our bylaws. You have that, so I won't take time to read that to you. You already have that, our bylaws. These are our staff members that work within our program. We have 33 individuals that work within our program. And these are the school assignments of every one of our YDS. And then here are our grant objectives. And as you can see, our grant objectives aligns with the district's objectives. That's so important for us to increase the school attendance rate, to increase graduation rate, to increase career readiness and support our at-risk students, to enhance our problem-solving and cognitive skills that goes along with our state tests, and then to increase knowledge of culture, identity, and awareness. So everything that we do, we work from a cultural perspective. This is our funding information. The bulk of our funding does support personnel, and human capital is so essential, especially when we're talking about dropouts. We work closely with trying to increase the dropout rate, to decrease the dropout rate and increase the graduation rate. Relationship building is essential for our community. We work closely with our parents. It is the cornerstone of our recruitment and our retention. Funding is available for culturally relevant activities, and you see that a small portion of our funding is allocated for supplies and materials as it relates to supporting our programming. We collaborate closely with the tribe. We have been part of the grant writing process for many of their grants that they have received. We participate in travel events, and we also have individuals from our tribal council that serve on our parent advisory committee. This is our funding. This is the big piece that we wanted to look at tonight. You see our personnel has increased. Every other area has decreased. We had a decrease of $67,667. And that goes to the decrease in the amount of students that we had this year due to the fact that Old Main pulled out. So we lost over 350 students. Our public hearing is this Monday. I would love and encourage each of you to be part of our public hearing. It will be on Monday, April 15th at 5:30 at Indian Education in our gymnasium at the back. And we will be highlighting many of our students that have won in our North Carolina art, writing, and many of our scholarship winners, our Culture Academy students. Some of our students, we have one student that attended the National ACES conference and has been offered an internship with Chevron. So that is huge. So we're very proud of that. We want to highlight our upcoming summer camp as well. And these are just some pictures you already have. These are some of the activities that our students participate in with our programming. And this is just an update on our grant that we wrote for the building for the Indian Education Resource Center, which is the old Pembroke High School. The grant we wrote back before COVID was $688,000. And most of the work as it relates to the lintels and the reporting of the brick has been completed. They will put a permanent ramp in the front of the building. That was not in the original planning, but due to the federal guidelines, it had to be placed there. And then if there's an additional funding, the additional funding will go to replace the windows and doors, which is what we had in place originally. We just don't know if we'll have enough of funding to replace all of the windows and doors due to the ramp having to be put in place. And you've already seen this data. I share this data when I share with the tribe. This is the same data that Ms. Freeman and Dr. Carr just shared with you. I do put the note at the bottom. These numbers can be misleading due to power school verification. And we've had this conversation with DPI because every student that we have that has a 506 number is not listed as American Indian. And this is just some information here, how we provide information and disseminate information out to our parents. And that concludes the presentation. Do you have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Hang on, Melissa. Get your.
So I have just two questions, Dr. Connie. So you stated that Old Mainstream pulled out of the, I guess, the consortium that you all had. Does that mean they have currently 350 students enrolled in their academy?
Old Mainstream after this year will no longer be part of our programming. They elected to apply for the grant independently, so they're going to apply for the grant, and if they've received the funds, they'll provide their own resources for their students for their tribal grant.
Okay, and did they give you a reason why they chose to go independent this time?
That's a question that you would need to ask them, ma'am.
Thank you.
Dr. Manuel?
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion that we approve the 2024-25 Title VI grant as presented.
Second.
All right. Dr. Manuel's made a motion to approve the 24-25 Title VI grant that Dr. Connie Locklear has presented. All in favor say aye. Mr. Gentry.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are you there, Ms. Monroe?
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry.
That's fine. And you're a yes also?
Sure, yes.
Okay. Next, we will have honoring Pembroke Elementary team, Ms. Jessica Seeley and board members. If you will, Mr. Gentry, will you cut your, there you go.
Good evening, Chairman Lawson, Dr. Williamson, and board members. Please join me by lining up in front of the podium for a special presentation. front of the podium. For the picture, in front, for the picture. In front. Yeah, they're going that way. In front of the podium, okay. So we want to thank members of Pembroke Elementary School and present them with a special plaque of recognition this evening. We want to recognize this group for their swift and courageous actions taken to protect students and staff when an individual with a weapon entered their school building. Your actions, ladies, are to be commended, and the Public Schools of Robeson County extends its deepest gratitude for your character, strength, and leadership. And I will recognize you individually. First off, I want to say thank you, Joanna Hunt. Okay, next we want to recognize Ms. Hatina Wariak Scott. Thank you also to Ms. Kimberly Jacobs. We also want to say thank you to Danielle Jolliker. Thank you also to Ms. Jennifer Locklear. She's not present, but let's give her a round of applause. And also thank you to Michelle Oxendine. And we're going to get a group picture. If y'all will get up front. Miss Erica, one more picture, a group picture. And as they're going, let's give them a round of applause as a group. Thank you, ladies, so much.
Yes.
This is a topic you're never prepared to talk about, but I just want to say first, thank God, thank y'all for honoring us tonight, and thank you to this wonderful team of ladies. None of us were prepared that morning, for what the day held for us, but working together with great teamwork, one team, one goal, without being able to communicate, but just knowing each other well enough that morning. We fed off of each other, and we were able to work together, and all the students and staff were able to go home safe that day. So we are truly blessed. And I thank each and every one of them for the role they played that day.
Thank you.
Wait a minute, ladies. Wait a minute, ladies. Now, folks, I'm gonna be honest, they were more nervous, I think, coming here tonight than they were that day. In talking to them, when I made a comment that they would be here tonight, and I said, just be ready, you might have to speak. So they're all real nervous now because they don't know what's fixing to happen. But to reiterate what Ms. Joanna said, I can't imagine what they went through that day and what they did based on training and stuff that's been done in the school system, was to me remarkable. But Miss Michelle, come here. You probably heard somebody ask for a gun. This is the lady that asked for a gun. The gentleman had the gun, and I don't know exactly what you said. What did you say?
I asked him, did he have a gun on him? And he just said, yes, ma'am. And I asked him, would he give it to me? Probably wasn't the right thing.
Go right here. Go right here.
I asked the gentleman if he had a gun on him, and he said, yes, ma'am. I asked him, would he mind turning it over to me? And he said, yes, ma'am. I wasn't thinking at the time. Probably wasn't the best thing at the time, but I didn't fear that he was there to hurt anyone. He handed it over, and I put it under my coat, and I went into Miss Hunt's office with it. And I won't tell you what she began to do with it.
Yeah, that's another story. That's another story. But again, ladies, I just wanted to thank you and thank the board for recognizing you tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, one other thing on that. So I went out that morning, and leadership matters in every building. You would never have known that something of that magnitude happened that morning. Kids was calm, going about the business, classes going on. So again, thank you to that wonderful, wonderful team that very easily and no question saved lives, because something else could have happened. So thank y'all so much. Leadership really matters.
Thank you. Now we'll move to House Bill 259, Oxendine Elementary. Ms. Erica Setzer and Dr. Williamson.
Good evening, Chairman Lawson, Superintendent Dr. Williamson, and board members. So right before we left for break, I believe it was actually that Friday, we received notification of a blessing to PSRC in the form, I always speak in numbers, of PRC 251, otherwise known as Economically Disadvantaged Public School Support Funds. We received notification that after the break, we would have a webinar to discuss the options for these funds, what our allotment would be, and so forth. So Oxendine Elementary is one of 29 schools in the entire state that has been granted funding from this section of House Bill 259, Section 7.45, for meeting certain criteria, including being an economically disadvantaged public school where a student population is composed of at least 80% of students identified by DPI as economically disadvantaged, and a qualifying economically disadvantaged public school, which means they exceeded expected growth in the prior school year. So we're talking about for the 22-23 school year. So Oxendine was one of 29 other schools that met that criteria and will be receiving $113,611. And I have included that allocation as new funding in your budget amendments that I will submit later. When we had our initial webinar, there are 3 codes in the chart of accounts. There was a code for bonuses, for the FICA, and for 411 to support curriculum. So those are the things that can be purchased with PRC 251. We're still in the early stages, but we've narrowed down and had a meeting with Dr. Herndon that we're going to be offering bonuses to staff at Oxendine Elementary. We're still really early, so I can't give a lot of detail on that yet, but it's a fixed amount of money. So once we determine eligible employees, it would include classified and certified. We will come back with what those final numbers end up being.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Erica. Dr. Williamson?
Yes, let me ask our principal, Dr. Herndon, if you'll come. Our focus has been the principal as the instructional leader. This is evidence of an instructional leader in a high poverty school that exceeded growth. And so join me in saying congratulations to you and your staff. Job well done. And I'll hand you the mic.
Good evening, Chairman Lawson, Dr. Williamson, and board members. It is an honor to stand up here tonight before you to represent Oxendine Elementary School and the community. We have worked diligently, and I will say it takes a team to grow and take care of our students. I can honestly say that Dr. Williamson, as well as all of the board members and the assistant superintendents, have supported Oxendine Elementary School. We have asked for support numerous times through the different departments, and Dr. Williamson and I continue to have conversations. I am an advocate for Oxendine Elementary School and will continue to serve as an advocate. And I would like to say my staff during the 22-23 school year, we always work hard, but since we're focusing on 22-23, it was a collaborative effort. I have a strong leadership team, which includes myself, but with the support of an academic coach and an assistant principal, with a strong collaborative leadership and collaborating with the staff members, our guidance counselors, our bus drivers, our cafeteria workers, our custodians, and everyone on our campus. That is how we were able to receive this money. Again, I stand before you. I want to thank Dr. Williamson. I thank you for your support and our board members again, and especially to the staff at Oxendine Elementary School, because it takes all of us to meet the needs of every child. And we work diligently to do that, and we are going to continue working hard and continuing to show growth at Oxendine Elementary School and advocate for all of our staff as well as our students. So again, it is a great honor to stand before you to represent Oxendine Elementary School and community. And last of all, I want to thank our students as well for performing. Thank you again.
Next will be 2023, 2024. Tim's transportation audit, Dr. Robert Guzman, which
I apologize. I wanted to add one caveat to these funds. They are in the budget. We're in a biennium budget, so they are in the budget for 24-25. But those data sets will be evaluated every year, so there's no guarantee of which school will be eligible. They will, for next year, they'll look at the 2023 test data 2024 test data. So it could be new schools and a new set altogether that are in this funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Erica. Dr. Guzman? Yeah, Mr. Craig?
Mr. Chairman and Superintendent Dr. Williamson, I'm just going to take a moment and brag a minute. Ms. Joanna Hunt and Dr. Herndon, they're former 9th grade students of mine.
Well, you had your hands full.
This is a tough act to follow
That's
after these
right.
two, so this is going to be kind of hard. Chairman Lawson, Superintendent Dr. Williamson, board members, thank you for allowing me to present some information to you as we come out of COVID, especially in the transportation department. There is a stronger and stronger push from DPI about more accountability and presentation of audits that are done. So traditionally, this has not been done in the past as far as a presentation. However, due to the gravity and the impact of what this has, especially in regards to future funding, it is very imperative that we go ahead and wanted to share this information with you. Contained in your packets is a report that was sent to Dr. Williamson in regards to TD TIMS. Now, what TD TIMS is basically our routing system. So basically what we do is we work through that system to make sure we are first trying to be safe with our stops and our routes, but also to make sure that we are trying to be as efficient as humanly possible. Now, there are multiple steps throughout this whole entire year in which we report to DPI, both on the routing aspect as well as the operational aspect, to ensure that the data that we are providing coincides with what we say we are doing as far as the operational and what we are putting on paper as far as DPI. As you look in this, the important part is we want to hit 90% or higher. So we want to be in the green. So within this, we actually increased our ridership from September to November by almost 23.4%, going from what was projected in September to what was actually done in November. That is significant because to go back to Erica's with the numbers, our 056 funding is based on ridership. So the more students that ride the buses, our yellow transportation, the more funding we receive for that service. So it is imperative. We want as many students to ride the bus, not only because it helps out, but it's also the safest mode of transportation for our students to get to and from school. We are also within this want to be able to see what we start out with and what happens in November. Of course, there's some normalization within there, and there are some changes from what you thought you were going to start out with what actually happens. And so we were actually able to decrease our total bus mileage at that time by 550, which you'll see eventually in our efficiency rating increase, as well as we were able to decrease the amount of hours that drivers were driving. Now, please don't think that is negative. As you increase your efficiency with your routes, excess hours will fall off. And so that happens sometimes also with the changing of the times with the students, as well as with student demographics that impact the schools and those schools' routes. So as you can see, we're almost at 95% for both, well, we are above 95% for the total bus miles, and also almost at 95% for the total hours, which is very important because it shows we are planning and doing and actually operating as we say we are doing. And we are as efficient as we can. As far as those other numbers, the total bus miles and total driver hours, you would like to get to 100%, but the reality is with the fluidity of what we deal with on a daily basis with transportation, you want to get as close to 100% as humanly possible. The important number is on the right-hand side, which is 230. We said we were going to run 230 buses. We have, in fact, run 230 buses. Where that is imperative, ladies and gentlemen, is where we talk about bus replacement. It takes 25 years and 250,000 miles to replace a bus. Of course, we're going to get years. That's going to happen. The mileage needs to happen. And you don't get mileage unless the buses are on routes running. And in order to get credit for that bus, it has to run at least 91 days. All of those buses have. And that is imperative as we're talking about the safety of those students riding on those buses to ensure that those buses and their 30-day inspections are meeting the needs of what we need to ensure the safety of the students as they're transporting to and from school. What that also is important is that when you talk about bus replacement, especially with COVID, with the loss of ridership that all districts had, you do not want to have an influx amount of those buses, because if you have parked buses, eventually the state will come back and take those buses from you. And you don't want to have that just in case if you have district-wide growth. Also because once you lose that bus, you lose that availability to replace that bus. So we were actually able to go down from 36 to, at the end of this year, we will have 13 parked buses, which is really a tremendous achievement with COVID. And it basically means we are going back to our levels before COVID, and we're back to our normal as far as transportation. 13 may seem to be a high number, but I'm going to say this unofficially because we're not supposed to really get that information out. Another large, very school district in this state parked 46 buses this year. And so that's 46 buses that also impact their funding and other sources of services that are be able to provide for transportation. So that is a very big deal. I'd like to commend the TIM staff, especially Ms. Renette McQueen, Ms. Jenny Abear, and Christina Dunlap for all of their hard work and the changes that have occurred within that department to ensure that you can see the efficiency that those ladies are providing public schools of Robeson County.
Any questions? Mr. Gentry?
Dr. Goodsman, first of all, thank you for your leadership and efficiency, your staff, and these figures document that and illustrate that in a very powerful way. I do have a question, and this may be an accounting method, but I'm looking at the difference between the figures instead of reading all that out, the first column, A, B, and then the difference. And of course, we're talking about students here. Could you elaborate a little bit on the accounting procedure that occurs?
Sure. Well, number one, this is the first time we've had this report really sent out like it is. And so we've made some suggestions. Because at the beginning, what actually column A is what the projections are column B is what should have been first with the beginning part of the year. The TDR is actually in TIMS, which is what is presented in November once things normalize. So you can have all of these plans and have especially like the first 10 days, a certain amount of ridership, but things tend to level off. You have students come in, you have the 10 days settle. And so that's the reason why TD TIMS in the November part is done. That's why those students are higher. So you see an influx of those. Those are also students that might have changed within those first couple of months to be able to provide services. What it also means, and I will go ahead and say, since we have a wonderful bus coordinator off to my right, it is the hard work of the bus coordinators and the staffs to be able to increase the amount of bus drivers that they have on their campuses. So what this also means is that those staffs that have maybe a bus driver that's missing or not enough subs to be able to cover have done their due diligence to make sure on the human resources side for their schools to ensure that those students can increase those services for those students by being able to have those bus drivers. That doesn't mean that the students aren't able to, it just means that they were able to be more efficient on what we do on our end. So what that also means is a decrease in bus ridership, bus rider time, and an increase in instructional time in which those students are able to be in the classroom.
Mr. Chair, if I may, please. I join Mr. Gentry in saying to Dr. Guzman, thank you for your leadership and your knowledge of transportation. I will ask, what are we paying now, fuel cost per gallon that continues to climb?
Too much, sir. To be honest with you, we've been able to stabilize our fuel cost to about $2.50. We, of course, buy our fuel at a discounted rate because of the quantity that we are, but basically we have been able to stabilize that for what we have to incur the cost to be able to provide other services. So when students are able to go on field trips, we've been able to stabilize that cost without seeing a larger increase, even though with fuel cost, transportation costs of those fuels from point A to point B, that has been able to be mitigated not only by our efficiency here, but also by the efficiency of being able to reclaim those monies on funding.
So again, this information and your leadership is critical that we can continue to provide services, transportation for our students. And you're doing an outstanding job. Erica, historically in the past, we have received additional funding for fuel cost transportation. Will that happen this year?
We have actually received, I believe it was 72,000 for the fuel differential from DPI. What we haven't received is a early college.
And I'll speak to that, sir. Also with some of the changes that are going through some of the contingency funding, that's one of the contingency fundings that Ms. Erica just alluded to. Some of those are going to the wayside. So one of those so far has been the early colleges because so many schools are actually providing yellow bus services for those instead of shuttles and other circumstances. However, it was very impactful for us to get the money that we received this year because that was monies we were not expecting. That was monies that helped continue some efforts on some things that we're doing in order to make sure that we do not have to increase fuel costs, because that's one of our major costs, especially with us being in the county that's the largest county in North Carolina, and also with the amount of roads that we travel in.
I do want to add, though, that if there is any program with transportation that allows for extra funds, Dr. Guzman and his staff are always on top of applying for it. And part of the budget amendment I'm submitting tonight is that fuel cost differential and equipment that him and his team applied for. So that is included as new funding in the budget amendments.
Not one of what Miss Erica is talking about. We were able to ask for, as you know, we deal with a machine, and sometimes machines break and catastrophically. And sometimes you can set aside certain budget amounts, but you're not able to. We were actually able to request and receive all of the funding up to, which for us was a little under $15,000 for repair costs that we would not have been able to recover for if it wasn't for us being able to do that. So I know that $15,000 does not sound like a lot, but when you're talking about a transmission for a bus that carries students on a route, you can see the domino effect of how exponential, even though $15,000 may seem inconsequential, the effect exponentially that has.
Any other questions? Next, Dr. Guzman, activity bus updates.
We're moving forward. The activity bus updates is actually with the grant that we were awarded through the DEQ grant, in which we will be able to take some of our very older and let's just say older buses, I'll say seasoned in some aspects, to be able to be replaced. What we were able to do through funding, unfortunately through DEQ, when we were awarded this grant, of course, with anything, the price of buses went up and the amount of the award had to stay the same of what we did. Basically, of the 5 buses that we applied for, we were awarded 4. Basically, I want you to think of it as we only paid, I want to say, Miss Erica, about $80,000 in order to receive 4 buses. And as of right now, I want you to put this number in your head. A new activity bus costs roughly about $137,000. So we were able to maximize our amount through DEQ with the application of this grant to be able to better serve our students. We've already discussed with Mr. Bobby as well as Dr. Williamson a plan, so this will be able to help out not only the high schools, but also to be able to help out the middle schools as well, to make sure that we're providing safe transportation for these students, athletes, as they're going to and from their events. Not only to and from the events for student athletes, but as you know, especially after yesterday, hopefully those of you that saw the efforts of everybody at Special Olympics, these activity buses carry precious cargo. They carry our children to and from various events, both extracurricular and curricular during the school day. So it is a very imperative as we work through to make sure that we're updating our fleet and making sure that they're as safe and efficient as possible. We are in the process right now. We have 2. Unfortunately, with the DEQ grant, there are some requirements that have to go through, in which there are not only site visits, but we have to destroy the older vehicles. They don't want us saying, hey, we are going to continue to use a vehicle and get a $137,000 bus while we're still trying to use another bus. So we have plans to be able to use those as well that we will discuss later on as we get closer. But of the 2, we have 2 in our possession. Hopefully we will be finish up the reimbursement process within the next 30 to 45 days, and then to be able to roll over that money, because the unfortunate part is we're not given this money ahead of time. We have to provide the full amount of funding prior to, then have to get reimbursed. So it's one of those, I know this may seem like a lengthy process, why couldn't we get them all? But as far as everything goes, there's a lot of needs here in the public schools of Robeson County, and we're trying to make sure we're also accommodating those and being as efficient as what we can do to replace and be as fiscally responsible as we can be. So within that time frame, we've already talked with Erica, as those go off and we get the check from the state, we're going to go get the next 2 and go ahead and fulfill that within this next calendar year.
Mr. John Simmons.
Good evening, Dr. Guzman. What is the process of, like for the middle school, they had when they can't get an activity bus to get one of the yellow buses?
Actually, what they do, it's very simple, especially with Travel Tracker. We go through and Ms. Kay does a wonderful job of making sure that we can utilize those buses. 9 times out of 10, to be honest with you, sir, we utilize a yellow bus that is on their campus already, and we just make sure that we change that in Travel Tracker. Usually all that takes is a phone call in about 10 minutes to whoever that sponsor is. The only thing we will not do is have a yellow school bus go out of county. That causes too many issues as far as timing, especially with the instructional needs. If you've seen over the past 2 days, this has been a very busy week for us. We had the CTE, we had buses everywhere else. And so unfortunately, sometimes like this week, the demand required us to use yellow buses, but that's a very simple system. And that's the reason, part of the reason why Travel Tracker is such a vital part to us, is it increases our ability to look at that. What it also does is by utilizing a yellow bus within county, if something happens to that, we can quickly respond to those safety needs. But also, Mr. Simmons, what we try to do then is to try to assign the oldest bus that's closest to years to be renewed in order to get free miles. I know that sounds bad, but you try to go ahead and get as many extra miles as you can on that as humanly possible, so you can ensure that that bus can get replaced. Because remember, it's going to get its years. It's going to happen. But unfortunately, due to some of our districts of the size and where they're going, it's harder for us to be able to go ahead and get some of those miles that we would not normally be able to accrue throughout a year.
So the middle school, if they don't have an activity bus or a practice field facility, and they have to go to a county park or something to practice, can they use the yellow buses?
Yes,
for
sir.
that?
Matter of fact, to be quite honest with you, St. Paul's Middle School utilizes this a lot to be able to go to their fields, to go back and forth. As you know, as a former AD, it's a great thing to see more sporting events being added to our students. And so those demands are there. Unfortunately, I know, Mr. Simmons, it comes down to $137,000 is a very steep price to be able to pay for a bus. But to be able to use those, we have that authority to be able to use those yellow buses for extracurricular activities, and that we do that all the time, whether it's for athletic events or to change something within the school district to be able to go to Southeastern, the farmers market, or anywhere else for any event that those students need.
Okay, so the process is the coaches go to the AD goes to the principal.
Actually, there's no need to go to the AD. Those ADs all were briefed back when Mr. Hunt was here to be able to use the Travel Tracker. Every year, I actually spend in our beginning of the year bus coordinator meeting. I go over Travel Tracker to discuss with the bus coordinators, because actually those bus coordinators are the ones that also get to look at what's going on. And then, of course, in Travel Tracker, in that system, the principal must approve that trip. So that principal also sees what buses and what vehicles could be used for that.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Mr. Gentry?
Guzman, I became acquainted with and quite fascinated with the en route and online monitoring system that's in place. I had no idea until I had that conversation with you that's happening. And I'll say fortunately and unfortunately, we hear all too often of incidences happening. And I'm not just talking about irate parents. I'm talking about just our society in general. But what I want to ask you, and I think the answer would be pretty obvious. Have there been any, some, none incidences where that has come into play and has actually paid off in terms of preventing a situation from happening, or intervention during the incident itself?
Are you talking about the GPS system Synovia, sir, or are you talking about with Travel Tracker? Because those are two different systems.
I'm talking about the GPS.
Yep.
System,
The GPS has been actually a godsend. That is something when I first took over this position, we did not have. And it was very, I'm just going to be honest, it was very embarrassing when somebody called and a parent needed to find their child at 4:30. I couldn't give them an answer. And so throughout this system, it has actually increased our response time to a minor accident. It has allowed not only myself and my team to respond to accidents more efficiently for our 1050s, but we've also been able to have administration that has been able to utilize this system and stave off major issues. It goes back to a simple thing of communication. If you don't have your baby there and the bus is running late and you don't have that information from there to be able to call the school and have somebody at the school to be able to have access to that, and all the secretaries are able to, bus coordinators and everyone else at that school that are designated by that principal have access. And there's quite a few secretaries that are able to come, be able to access that system just to have that peace of mind. Or the bus is running late, it's here. I have in the morning while my gentlemen are at there, we actually have, just in case if anybody ever wanders down by the transportation, we have a big screen just like the boards that are on the walls that is, I like to call it our war room, that actually has where 24/7 our buses are monitored during that time frame. Mr. Bobby has access, the superintendent has access, is so that we are able to pinpoint and look at those vehicles in a timely manner, be able to provide those services. That's also, sorry, I'm probably going to steal Dr. Williamson's thunder. That's part also the reason why through our safety grants, we've been able to add the radios as another constant measure, because sometimes, let's be honest, you can go as high tech as you want. But I think a couple weeks ago when all of our phones went dead for whatever reasons, you kind of understand that sometimes low tech is the best way to go. Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Goose. Next, we have draft agenda, joint meeting, Board of Education and the Board of Commissioners for
Yes.
Robeson County.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We placed in your package a draft agenda for that meeting scheduled for April the 23rd. Dinner will be served at 5 o'clock. If you want to add something to the agenda, please reach out to Ms. Patty and we'll add that to the agenda. Okay. Thank you.
Next is public comments. Leslie Sessoms. Ms. Sessoms, while you're coming up, you'll have 3 minutes and there'll be a timer set.
Okay, good.
Okay.
I had my own with me just in case. Good evening, Dr. Williamson and Chairman Lawson and board members. I am the Reverend Dr. Leslie Sessoms, and I'm a youth minister in this county, have been for about 30 years now, but I'm also president of a nonprofit called Ministers for Justice. And we are a group of ethnically diverse ministers who are promoting unity and doing justice in our community. And I am speaking tonight on their behalf, on the behalf of our organization. First of all, let me congratulate you on the additional $12 million you recently acquired for the Robeson Career and Technical Center, Planetarium and Science Center. The new Career Center and the Pathway programs sounds as though it really could be a game changer for our county. And we look forward to celebrating with you the positive outcomes of that innovative approach to education. We as an organization believe in public education, and we're committed to doing our part to make sure all of our children receive a sound basic education. You may or may not be familiar, I hope you are, with the Leandro case. It was the Leandro case versus the state of North Carolina, began in 1994 when 5 counties, including ours, sued the state, arguing that their students were deprived of a sound basic education, which is guaranteed by the state constitution. This case has been in litigation for 30 years. I was a former teacher in the public schools of Robeson County. I have 2 children who came through this system from kindergarten all the way through graduation. My first child was enrolled in 1995, which was 1 year after this case was filed. Unfortunately, I knew nothing about this case until about 2 years ago. Thanks to 2 other organizations, nonprofits, Seeds of Hope and Pastors for North Carolina Children, who have been working hard on our behalf. And now I have a voice to speak up for our children. And I have been doing so at the local level, but also at the state level as well. So what impact could the Leandro plan mean? It could mean a total of $69 million for the public schools of Robeson County by the year 2028. And I've got a list of, and I'll give this to you, of all the things that you could do with that money, with the additional teacher assistants, additional nurses, psychologists, counselors, social workers, so much that money could be used, and more innovative programs, just like you already have mentioned and are working on. It's our belief as an organization that the more people know about this, the more our voices will be heard. So we come tonight asking you for your help as board members. We'd love to sit down and have some conversations. How can we get the word out? In talking with parents and administrators and educators in this county, there seems to be a real lack of awareness of this case. So I come tonight asking you, I'm going to leave my information here with you, and I would love to have some conversations.
Thank you. Next, we'll go into action items. PRC 071, additional teacher supplement. Ms. Erica Setzer.
Good evening again. So PRC 071, this will be the third year that the state has included funding for what, again, my number language, PRC 071, in their budget, and it's referred to as the additional teacher supplement. And this can be found in section 7A.12. All of the details were decided by the State Board of Education, the General Assembly, and the Department of Public Instruction. Public Schools of North Carolina has no input on who receives this bonus, how much money. All of that comes directly from the state. Again, I can say this will be the third year it's been presented to our certified. It is unfortunately only for certified employees. I've included that list in the information I provided. It has to be at a school, no central office staff or classified staff are eligible. And each year, the amount that PSRC certified employees are eligible for has increased. The first year we received it, it was slightly over $1,400 per employee. Last year, employees ended up with $2,557. This year, the funding is $3,340. And I put the caveat in there, that's the maximum that any one employee can receive. But in order for us to make sure all eligible staff receive it, that might not be the amount the teachers receive. It could be slightly lower. And I put all of that information when I send out the email to the employees. Teachers have to be employed by April 1st. If they are not employed by April 1st, they're not eligible for any portion. It is prorated if they did not start in August. So if they started in September, it'd be 90% and so forth. We have that formula in place. And every year this has to be submitted to boards of education and asked for approval. And so that's where I'm here tonight to do so. It is a fixed amount of money. So we'll put all eligible staff in and we will come back and let you know how much it ends up being. And we are proposing to pay this in June along with the regular teacher supplement.
Randy?
Mr. Craig?
Ms. Erica, I know you said it plainly, but please one more time and ever how we can get this out. PSRC does not decide who gets this money.
This is in the legislation. There are rules and regulations that have been given to us, and they very clearly spell out who is eligible and who is not eligible.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Fontaine?
Yes.
It's already an action item. Let me get these. Mr. Terry?
Could we also include certified individuals out of school that's not necessarily teachers, principals, assistant principals?
Principals and assistant principals are specifically excluded in the language in this legislation.
So it's just for teachers in the classroom?
It's for teachers in the classroom and instructional personnel like media, certified nurses, social workers, guidance counselors, our EC. Where's my other list?
Academic coaches?
Academic coaches
Okay.
are included, compliance specialists, yes, sir. But they have to be out of school, not central office employees.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Gentry?
I think I heard this correctly, and Mr. Craig followed up and kind of helped answer my question. And that is the not only the allocation, but the calculation as to each individual employee as to their position. Again, not only the allocation, but the actual calculation for how much each employee is going to receive is done outside of the central office.
That's correct. And I included that in your packet as well, so you can see what every district receives. That calculation is done by DPI, and we receive notification of it every year.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Vontae Leach.
I would like to make a motion that we approve this supplement.
Okay. I've got a motion by Mr. Vontae. I've got a second by Mr. Craig to approve the PRC 071 additional teacher supplement. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ms. Monroe,
Aye.
all opposed? Motion carries.
And these funds are included in the biennium budget, so we do plan to receive these in the next year, 24-25. We'll get new information. We'll come back again probably in April of next year with the same information.
Next on action items is budget amendments 23-24. Ms. Erica.
Thank you, sir. I have presented state budget amendments and Enterprise Fund 6 budget amendments, and I can answer any questions anyone has regarding those.
Mr. John Simmons.
Has anything changed?
We've gotten some new funding. I did want to point out that was a question I received earlier, and we've talked about tonight some of the 056 funding. It's not just moving things that were already as part of the budget. With state funds, we've received new funding since I presented the budget, and that's included here.
Make a motion to approve.
Hang on, Dr. Manuel's got a question. Let me get that question in for we.
My question is, in one of these items, and you have to tell me, Erica, you know, we are approving the reading curriculum. If we approve this money tonight, is that correct? The e-curriculum, is it figured into one of these
No, ma'am.
budgets? Okay.
No, it's federal funded.
Is it federal funding we're approving tonight?
No, ma'am, it's information only. We're not asking for approval for that tonight. That's for information. For federal funds and sole source, there's a different process and it doesn't require board approval. So that other sheet that shows the curriculum is for information only. We're not asking for any action on that tonight.
All right, thank you.
To be clear, these budget amendments are only for state funds and enterprise funds. Is that
Correct. They are for state and Fund 6. They do not include any federal budget
Thank
amendments.
Mr. John Simmons, you made them. Do I have a second? I've got Mr. John Simmons made a motion to approve the budget amendments 23-24. Ms. Ocean made the second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ms. Monroe, all ayes. Motion carries.
Chairman, if I may, Erica, let's talk a little bit more about Dr. Emmanuel's question. So
Okay.
we're using ESSA funds, federal funds,
Yes,
to
sir.
roll over our curriculums for another year. And then once those funds are gone, once we use state or local funds, then we need to come to the board to get, so I want to be clear.
Yes, sir. So sole source procurement for using federal dollars required the aid pass-through agency to approve, which was the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. So our previous way we were getting this procurement was to go through DPI, and they would send us a letter, a certificate saying these expenses were approved. You'll see on my note, in November of 2022, DPI said, no, we no longer want to be that agent. The LEA can continue to perform this, and we've had a process in place based on all the guidelines they gave us, but it does not require board approval. It only required approval through the pass-through agency. Everything we presented, we have received a letter of approval from DPI in the past, and we just continued with that process. And I indicate on here what those things are, how much they cost, the years that it covers, and I do have the note there that these resources will require PSRC Board of Approval when the funding source changes to state.
Okay, next on action items, monthly financial report. Ms. Erica Setzer.
I included the monthly financial report in your packet, and I can answer any questions anyone has at this time.
Anything changed, Ms. Erica?
No, sir.
Make a motion to approve.
I've got Mr. John Simmons with a motion to approve the monthly financial report. Ms. Ocean with a second. All in favor, say aye. All
Aye.
opposed, no. Motion carries. Mr. Gentry.
Clarification for me. And I'm specifically looking at 069 at-risk students, summer school.
Yes,
And,
sir.
The POs are outstanding, and then the remaining balance. and
So you'll see a
I'm still
negative
trying to-
balance there. But you'll see a negative balance there based on, but DPI doesn't look at the POs, they only look at year to date. So I have an ABC transfer pending now to move state dollars in there to correct that. And I'll be bringing that forward in the May meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Emmanuel?
Miss Erica,
Yes, ma'am.
straighten me out. What code is Leandro? What, please tell us.
So Leandro, we've gotten mostly low wealth is where we've gotten additional funding. If we have not received low wealth funding, our district would not be able to give up teacher supplements at all. Over the course of the years, even though we haven't had finality in that court case, we've also received DSSF funding, disadvantaged student supplemental funding. So that is a direct result of things going on with the case, but we do not have, and it is 60+ million plus 69 million that
So,
our district will receive.
Can
with
I ask
Leandro.
you a question?
Yes.
Are we aware of Leandro and have we received monies past and presently from Leandro?
We have received monies, but we have not received really what the district is due based on the data provided in the Leandro case. But we have received, we at one point did not receive DSSF funds. That's been a direct result of the Leandro case.
But we are aware of it financially, aren't we?
Correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, can we ask our school board attorney, final delegations just happened. Where is the state on that, please?
The Supreme Court the North Carolina Supreme Court in February had a hearing that is liable to be a very impactful one in the long-running history of the Leandro case. So back in the fall, we thought we had a great victory in the Leandro case with only some final accounting to be done, with the case having been sent back to the Superior Court to determine how much money needed to be paid. There was a switch on the Supreme Court majority, and the Supreme Court agreed to hear the Leandro case again in February. They did. We're awaiting a ruling now, and there's a whole lot less optimism on the part of the school system plaintiffs now than there was back in the fall. So we're waiting to see what the Supreme Court is going to say about this case and whether or not it's going to go on and in what shape or form.
Okay. Everybody good?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Erica. Mr. Britt, closed session.
I move that the Board of Education for the Public Schools of Robeson County go into closed session for the purposes of discussing certified and classified personnel, North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A1 and 6, and to consult with the attorney retained by the board in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the Board of Education for the Public Schools of Robeson County, North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A1 and 3, and to consider student matters are considered with North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A1 and 115C-402 and 20 U.S. Code 1232G.
And do I have a second? Mr. Britt, with a motion to go into closed session, Ms. Ocean with the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. closed session. All those in favor have a second by Mr. John Simmons. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Thank you, Ms. Monroe. I need a motion to approve personnel as presented. Okay, I've got a motion from Mr. Gentry, a second by Mr. Vontae to approve personnel as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. I need a motion and a second for closed session minutes. I got Mr. Gentry making a motion for closed session minutes.
Mr. Chair,
Hey, sir.
and those should be the closed session minutes of both March 12 and March 14, 2024.
March 12th
And March 12 and 14.
and 14. And that was a second by Mr. Henry Brewer,
And who was the motion by? I'm sorry.
Mr. Gentry.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries.
Now you need a motion to amend the agenda.
I need a motion and a second to amend the agenda.
Motion to amend the agenda to add the resolution of the dismissal of Wallace Oxendine Jr.
A second.
She can't say. I've got Vontae making a motion to amend the agenda on the resolution of Walvis Oxendine Jr. I have a second by Mr. John Simmons. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries.
Now you need a motion to approve the resolution.
All right.
Motion to approve the dismissal of. Motion to approve the dismissal of Wallace Oxendine Jr. as presented by the board attorney.
The resolution.
Resolution.
I've got Mr. Vontae Leach making a motion. The resolution dismissal for Wallace Oxendine Jr. I got a second by Mr. Gentry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries.
We get Ms. Monroe on that?
Ms. Monroe, did you vote on that? Or
I
she-
did say aye.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, thanks.
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Vontae made a motion to adjourn. Ms. Ocean made the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Y'all have a good one.